Hi, I'm Bill Ritchie, and I'm going to test press number 68 today. This press is going to John, and it's all ready to test. I have the shipping board ready, the sticky pad to keep it from moving around when I'm printing. I'll be testing a copper etching, and I'll be using my old blankets, but with every mini Halfwood press, the owner gets new blankets. Comes in the little box, along with the certificate of authenticity, the little book, which is kind of a birth certificate for the press. The owner gets a new test plate, a copper plate, 22 gauge copper. He gets an Allen wrench to make sure that the set screws are tight. And when this press test is all finished, the copper plate itself will be laminated onto this card with a story of the artist trading card as an etching on the back. And finally, he gets an owner's manual. That's what's in the box. I'm set up, as I said, with a copper plate, an etched copper plate. And I'm going to start today by first putting the blankets and getting the pressure set. There are two blankets, or felts as they're called. One is the sizing catcher that goes next to the paper, and the other's the pusher blanket, which goes next to the roller. On my presses, I suggest tightening the top roller all the way down to the bed. That way we know they're going to be level to start out. Then I count backwards about 12 turns to give it clearance for the blankets. 1, 12 half turns, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That gives you enough clearance for getting the blankets started. So I push the blankets under the top roller, and then I tighten it back down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, almost 6 half turns. That's a good way to judge the pressure. It's just as sort of tight as you can get it for a 22 gauge copper plate. The other way to judge the pressure is with tiny roller rulers that are mounted on both sides of the press, so that by lining up the block with the letter, you can compare the two and that way keep the roller level. It's very important to keep the roller level. So now the pressure is set, and I can go on with getting my plate inked and wiped and ready to print. This is my copper plate. It's been etched in the same design that I've etched all the other plates. I'm making an addition of 49 etchings for these presses. I'm going to be inking the plate with black intaglio ink. This is a Charbonnel black. And then I'm going to roll a color on for a surface color. That way I can have a light color over a black intaglio. Now this is the ink, the way it comes out of the tube. I'm going to soften it a little bit with a drop or two of plate oil. It doesn't take much to change this ink. Make it a little easier to wipe. And after I've inked the plate intaglio and wiped it, I'm going to roll on a surface color with a brayer. For my surface color, I'm going to use two colors actually, mixed together to make what I call cinnabar. That's going to take a little bit of Charbonnel Sanguine and a little bit of Charbonnel violet Solferino. I'll mix those two together. Now, while these are intaglio inks, they're not meant for relief printing. I'm going to force them to be relief printing inks simply by putting in some oil called 470 flash oil. So first I'll mix the colors to get my cinnabar. And then I'll add the 470 oil, which is a product sold by Daniel Smith, among other manufacturers. It gets its name because it flashes at 470, which means it has a very high flash point, so it's not very flammable, and it evaporates very slowly, but it does evaporate, which is what we want. We don't want our prints to be full of solvents. I'm doing this because I want very, very thin layer of color. Just a haze of color, not a thick relief color that you might see in a woodcut or something like that. I'm going to roll it out with a soft speedball brayer that has a 1-inch diameter. Because it has a 1-inch diameter, it means it can only roll about 3 inches before it repeats itself. If it repeats itself, then of course it messes up the tone. This is very thin and runny. I'll put a tiny bit out and begin rolling. It's best to roll in 2 directions, about 90 degrees. Now my thin coat of color intended for the surface is ready, and I'll start doing my intaglio inking. I'll use a little piece of chipboard, mat board, spread it on the plate and work it into the texture. I'm going to warm the plate so it makes it easier to wipe. Oil-based inks are always easier to wipe if they are warm. Using tarlatan, which is a stiff cotton fabric, if I put this plate on a sticky pad, it stays in place better. Now you can see the design is coming up. This is the paper wipe. It takes off more of the surface ink, but because my procedure is light and fast, the ink that's trapped in the textures isn't going to move. It stays with the plate. That's the whole idea of intaglio printing. Now the design is even more clear. And finally, the hand wipe. I have to take off the glove for that. If my hands are perspiring, as they were in that glove, I use a little talcum powder. Rub it on to dry off my hand. We're almost ready to roll that surface color across, and finally test that press. That should be enough for the hand wipe. I'll be printing 2 of these. One of them will go to John, and the other one I'll keep for my collection. One more little thing is to clean the edge of the plate. Now, before I made this videotape, I prepared ahead of time. I prepared a system of runners, these strips of paper. The purpose of those is so that this roller, which is carrying this very thin layer of very slippery, oily ink, won't slide. In other words, the roller, being 6 inches long, can straddle the plate, and the rollers, the runners on the side, will keep it from skidding across the plate. The fact that the ink is very oily also means that it won't pull the black ink out of the plate. Now I see an unexpected development, and that is that the brayer itself, being my oldest brayer, is leaving patches of uninked areas. So I'm going to break my rule about rolling over and over it. And as we sometimes do in printmaking, just go with it. Call it a happy accident. Now I'm ready to print. I've had this paper sitting in this plastic bag under my ink slab for a couple hours now. It's Arch cover, which is a great printmaking paper. I ran it under a tap for a minute, and then I put it in this sandwich bag. It still has a lot of surface water on it, so I'll blot that off with my telephone book pages, so that there's no wetness on the surface. But now the paper is very soft. That's how we like it when we're printing intaglio prints. For the benefit of the video, I'll turn the press around. Put the paper on the plate and run it through. Now I'm going to lift it slightly so that the paper doesn't push, like when you're rolling out pie dough, and skid across the ink. On such a small print, it doesn't really matter. Now again, for the benefit of the video, I'm going to turn the press back around. But before I pull the proof, I'm going to put the moment number on it, which is a number I invented for myself, which is the date. This is 2010, the month 11, the day 11, and the time, using the 24-hour clock, 16:22. There's trial proof number 1. It looks pretty good, and now I'm going to re-ink and print trial proof number 2 and stop the program here by saying thank you for watching. I'm Bill Ritchie.